Today I want to make a video answering a very common question that I get on the channel, and that is, should you buy a Saab or should I buy a Saab? Is it a good idea? Is it a good investment? Is it worth the money, etc.? So I want to start off by saying that I'm going to be as unbiased as possible while making this video, because clearly I do love the brand Saab and I want as many people to drive them as possible. So I'm going to try to remain unbiased throughout this video. So let me address a very common fallacy about Saab and a lot of other brands that no longer make cars, and that is that parts are hard to find. So that is completely incorrect. Granted, you can't just go to a Saab dealership like you could with a Mazda or a Volvo or something like that and pick up whatever part you need, but you can still get just about any part you need pretty easily. First off, you have scrap yards, and that's the place that I always go first because it's always the cheapest and you can usually get it right away. You just have to remove it yourself. And second off, there's at least 3 good sites that I know of for getting stock Saab parts, and of course there are a few more sites out there that offer aftermarket Saab parts. But for the stock Saab parts, the 3 sites that I suggest looking at are 1. eEuroparts.com, 2. eSaabparts.com, and 3. genuinesaab.com. Those 3 sites have pretty much everything that you need for any Saab model. Well, I wouldn't say any Saab model. I mean, if you've got a very old Saab, probably before the 900, then you might have a bit of trouble finding parts online. But if you have any Saab that was 900 or newer, then you should have no trouble finding parts on sites like that. So now I want to discuss a lot of the pros and cons about owning a Saab, and hopefully that can help you decide if it would be a good car for you. One of the pros of owning a Saab is that it's unique and different than most cars out there. You know, you're not going to see too many Saabs out on the road, especially here in the Southwest. I know they're a lot more common up in the New England area and on the East Coast, but they're still not super common out there. So if you want something that's a bit less common, something that you don't see every day necessarily, now I'm not saying it's like an exotic car or anything, because it's certainly not, but it is a lot less common to see one of these than pretty much any other major automaker out there. So the second pro for buying a Saab is that you get a lot of car for the money. So because Saabs are no longer made, people do not want them, to put it simply. Most people assume that you can't find parts for them, that there's no one who can work on them, which is also untrue. And the value of them has just dropped. And I bought this car for $1,100 with 112,000 miles on it. Granted, it did have a few issues here and there, but $1,100 is still a great deal for what I got. So an average 9.3 of this generation, depending on mileage, might go from somewhere between 3,000 to 5,000. That's my guess, maybe 2,000 to 5,000, depending on mileage, condition, and this is before the facelifted version. Now, some of the 08 model year and newer, they can go up to like 15, maybe even 20 if they're super low miles. But for the most part, they are very cheap compared to similar cars in their class. And along with being cheap, you get a lot of car for the money. So for $1,100, I got a 2-liter turbo with over 200 horsepower and torque from the factory, and that was easily tunable to get an extra 50 without putting much money in the car at all. The aftermarket and performance availability of parts for these is not too common. You can find what you need from a few different companies, but they are very pricey. Just a downpipe for this car, there's probably 5 or 6 different good ones out there, and they're all at least $500, which is, I think that's just way too much for a piece of your exhaust system. So if you are going to modify one of these, you can only do a certain amount of modifications before you really have to start putting a lot of money into these, which is a bit unfortunate. And that is one of the cons, that you can't do too much to the car without putting a lot of money into it, but that is similar to pretty much every other car out there. So another pro of owning a Saab is that there are a lot of dedicated Saab owners and enthusiasts. Pretty much any issue that you have with the car, people will be able to tell you what's wrong. So if you got a check engine light or something, just search the code in Google and you'll find a forum or something. And if you have an issue that you can't find something about, just ask someone in a Facebook group, because a lot of the people in those Facebook groups are extremely knowledgeable. I mean, I've asked tons of questions to various people there, and they've all been answered with ease. It's really impressive how knowledgeable a lot of people are about these cars. So another pro about Saabs in my mind is that they're very good looking cars. So this car is a 2003, and while it doesn't exactly look new by today's standards, it definitely looks more modern and much more stylish than other cars from this year range. I mean, I think that Saab, and I guess admittedly partly GM, killed it with the looks of this car. It just looks so beautiful. It looks like it wants to go fast, and you can see the airplane heritage in certain aspects of the car. And one more major pro, and this is huge and definitely a bargaining chip if you're talking about a first car to your parents, is that these cars are so safe. They're some of the safest cars out on the road. Saab has always prided themselves on safety and the safety of their cars. And if you guys have seen some of my other Saab videos, I've played that clip of Top Gear dropping that BMW 3 Series and a Saab 900 on their roofs, and basically the 900 had no damage to it. It had some damage. I mean, obviously it dented a bit, but I mean, you would be okay surviving that, and the 3 Series was basically completely flattened. And another test that I recently just found out that Saab would do is they'd build a moose-like structure and see how well the car could withstand an impact from a moose at like 50 miles an hour, because apparently in Sweden, having moose or big animals just running out into the road is very common. So I just thought that was pretty funny and actually really neat. Another pro, of course, is they're extremely practical. They're not super big cars, but you can easily fit 5 people in these. I mean, 5 adults honestly probably would not fit comfortably in the back, but you can definitely fit 5 people in here, and there is a pretty good amount of trunk room in here as well. So it is a very practical car. Now, as for reliability is very questionable, and this is where I'm going to get into the cons of owning a Saab. Saabs have always been iffy on reliability. A lot of people say that they're horrible, don't buy them, they're money pits, and other people have had great success with them. And really when you're talking about a reliability of the car, a large part of that comes down to maintenance and how well that you take care of the car, because if you never take care of a car, it's never going to be reliable for you. So just to give you guys a quick example here, my dad owns a 1996 Saab 900, and he just hit 310,000 miles on it. He's the original owner. It's been very well maintained. We also have a 2004 95 Estate that has 230,000, I believe, and then this car has 128,000, and my mom's 9.3 convertible has just about the same mileage. Now granted, all 4 of these cars have had their fair share of issues, but they have never broke down on us. We've never had to have them towed. So when something does break though, it can be expensive, especially if you can't find it at a junkyard, or if you don't know how to do the repair yourself. They are very expensive to repair. When I got this car, there was an issue with the AC. We couldn't figure out what it was, so I took it to a Saab specialist. It cost me $500 to replace a fan, I think it was. It was pretty stupid, but because not many people know how to work on Saabs and can confidently do it, that's why a lot of Saab mechanics can charge such a high rate, because they know that there's not really any other option out there for you. So that is one major con, is that expensive repairs and questionable reliability. That's probably the primary con of owning or buying a Saab. So another con that you want to consider when buying a Saab is that the quality from the GM Aerosols, not the Saabs, but the GM Aerosols such as this one, is not really the best. You have a ton a ton of plastic in here, and it is not good quality plastic. It is cheap, shitty GM. I'm gonna spend 50 cents on the entire interior of this car quality. And a con to go along with if you're trying to sell a Saab would be that you're not going to get much money for it, unless it's some super rare low mile Saab that you can sell to another enthusiast who appreciates it. Because I mean, let's be realistic here, 99% of people don't give a shit that this is a Saab. They just see a car that isn't made anymore and see that it's worth next to nothing. So yeah, another con would be if and when you do go to sell it, you will not get much money for it at all. I mean, if I sold this car now, I could probably get somewhere between $3,000 and $4,000 because I have pretty much restored it to nice condition, except for the paint on the hood, which still needs to be addressed. But I can't really get top dollar for this car unless someone is willing to pay that, which I don't see anyone realistically willing to pay like more than $4,000 at most for this car. So I'm sure that I left out some pros and cons as well as some other advice that could prove useful to Saab consumers or people in the market for a Saab. So leave all of your input and additions down below in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys found this video informative, and I'll see you all next video.